Hello everybody and welcome to this Synology Partner Online training. We are really excited to bring you this topic here today, going over Synology for the home user part 2. You may remember we did a similar webinar on this one recently that was more of an overview of all the applications you can utilize on your Synology NAS. This one is going to be a little bit of a deeper dive into how to actually set up and utilize all those different applications. Quick introduction, my name's Cody, I'm a Senior Technical Account Manager here at Synology, and I'm going to be your guide for this one this time around. Now on the agenda here today, we're going to be taking a look at several different categories inside of the Synology ecosystem. First, we're going to look at our private cloud options with your Synology NAS. And you might remember from our previous webinar, we actually took a look at some normal file server workflows, like mapping network drives inside of Windows Explorer, for example. Now in this category, we're actually going to be taking a look at taking that a step further, utilizing Synology Drive so that you can access your data from anywhere, collaborate on documents live, and even sync to your endpoints. We're then going to be looking at your multimedia options inside of the Synology ecosystem and how you can take care of your photos, videos, and music on top of that in an easy and intelligent way. Now that we have all this data on the Synology NAS, we're also going to look at some different backup workflows that you can utilize to get data off the NAS into a third-party cloud provider, for example. Lastly, as a bonus section, we're going to take a look at Surveillance Station, a couple different little features that you can get with your Synology NAS, since, of course, at least 2 licenses are included with most Synology NAS devices in our lineup. Now, moving into private cloud with Synology Drive, you're going to notice there's several different components inside of this application whenever you go install the Synology Drive server through Package Center. First and foremost, you're going to have the Drive admin console, which is going to be how you actually go in and create these sync environments and these group work environments, like a team folder, for example. Next, you have the Drive Portal and Synology Office, which pretty much work in conjunction together. Drive Portal is an easy-to-access web browser that allows you to see and interact with your files from pretty much anywhere. And Synology Office is there to help you convert Microsoft Office files into Synology Office files so that you can indeed work on those in that Drive Portal. Lastly, you have the Drive Agent, and this is going to be what you utilize to actually sync data from your Synology NAS directly to your endpoint PC, Mac, or Linux device on top of that. Now, the first component we're going to take a look at today is the Synology Drive admin console, and this is going to be where you enable those shared workspaces or team folders inside of your private cloud and apply versioning to all those different files that you're now going to be housing inside of this environment. On top of that, you can set up settings for sharing for your non-admin users in case they wanted to share files externally to users that might not have an account on your Synology NAS. You can even customize how those sharing links will look whenever you do share those externally with someone else. Lastly, you can also manage connected clients that might be syncing data back to your Synology Drive environment. But honestly, for most home users, after you set up these first initial settings, the Drive admin console is pretty much going to be set and forget. The next components that we're going to talk about today is the Synology Drive Web Portal and Synology Office. Now, the Synology Drive Web Portal is an online web portal to help you manage and work on documents, very similar to other cloud platforms you might be familiar with. Now, using the Synology Drive Web Portal in conjunction with Synology Office allows you to convert Microsoft Office files to Synology Office files so that you can edit them directly in the Synology Drive Web Portal. One thing that I find very nifty about the Synology Drive Portal is that you can actually provide direct access to that web page rather than having to have your users log into DSM and launch the web portal with one of those application buttons. You can actually just directly access that web portal from anywhere. On top of that, you can access those file versions you set up in the admin console directly inside of the Synology Drive web portal, so you can roll back a file to a previous point if you needed to. Now, the final component today is the Synology Drive Agent, and it works with pretty much all major operating systems, and it's what allows you to actually sync your endpoints directly to your My Drive or team folder environments from anywhere. The reason why all of the Synology Drive environment and any one of the applications we're going to talk about today works from anywhere is because they all integrate with Quick Connect, making it very easy for end users and home users especially to be able to access their NAS from anywhere in a highly secure way. Now, this Synology Drive Agent doesn't just provide syncing options for you, you also get endpoint file level backups for PCs, Linux, and macOS devices on top of that. So here we are on our main NAS device for our first demo for today. Under shared folder, you can see we already have some shared folders created that we're going to be used to support our demos for later today. We already have some users and groups created. I have my Cody H user that I'll be using today, and we already have our external access set up for Quick Connect. We've already enabled that, and our address is Minerva-Spot. Keep that in mind throughout all the demos today. That is the address we will use in Drive, Video Station, Audio Station, and all the mobile apps we'll be taking a look at later today. Now, you could set this up utilizing DDNS, but it does require you to have some knowledge of port forwarding concepts, so Quick Connect is going to be easier for you as a normal home user. There are some other settings inside of advanced settings for Quick Connect, but generally speaking, you're not going to need to change any of those. So what we're going to do first is open up the Synology Package Center, and what you're going to see is that we have a couple different packages already installed. Okay, so we already have Synology Drive Server, Synology Office, Synology Photos, Video Station, Audio Station. All of those other modules are already installed on our system. So now that we've shown you our basic setup inside of our environment, let's go ahead and open up the Synology Drive admin console. And it's going to be pretty blank if this is the first time you set it up. So this is going to be really similar to what you would see. As you can see in Team Folder, we're going to go ahead and enable some of those shared workspaces or team folders. But you can see that My Drive is already enabled in our environment. That's because we already have the User Homes service enabled in our environment. And User Homes and your home folder is basically your own personal workspace on the NAS. And this is true for Synology Drive, for Audio Station, as well as for Synology Photos. So you'll see the My Workspace kind of environment that utilizes User Homes pop up a few times during this session today. So what you're going to see next is we already have My Drive enabled, but Household Documents is definitely going to be one of those folders that we want enabled as a shared workspace. So we're going to go ahead and enable this under the Enable button, and immediately you're going to be greeted with the version menu. So we definitely recommend to have some sort of versioning on your Drive environment, and usually the default versioning control of 8 versions is great for home user, but you could increase that if you wanted to 32 versions for that shared folder and all of the files and folders beneath that. We're just going to leave it on 8 in our case. And there you have it. The Household Documents folder is now enabled as a team folder in your Synology Drive environment and can be accessed through the Synology Drive portal. Now, under settings here, you can see that there's a couple different things that you can change, some things that you can do for performance. You can also change file ownership between users, but mainly a lot of those different functionalities are going to be for admin users trying to move data from one worker to another whenever maybe a worker leaves the company, for example. So for most home users, you're not going to need to change too much under the general settings. User sync profiles would be great if you wanted to put some controls on how or what files user is actually allowed to sync to the Synology Drive environment. Again, not really critical for a home user, but it is an option if you need it. Lastly, you can customize your sharing link, and we're going to stick with Quick Connect in our case since it's the easiest one for everybody to use, but you could change that if you need. So now that we've gone through all of our settings, we're now ready to start interacting with our team folders and our My Drive folder in our Synology Drive environment. So basically, the back-end work for our private cloud environment is pretty much done at this point. So what we're going to do next is go into our Synology Drive web portal, and what you're going to notice right when we open this up is it's very similar to other cloud-based platforms that you might be used to in the past. You're opened right into the My Drive location right here, and you can see we have also options for a team folder as well. And whenever we drill down into that team folder, what you're going to see is that we have that Household Documents folder available to us because we enabled that in Drive and we have permissions for that folder. Of course, we can drill down into it and you can see we can already tell that there's some regular Microsoft Office documents inside of this folder. Now keep in mind we also have Synology Office enabled for our Synology Drive web portal. So that means that we can take this document right here and actually convert it to a Synology Office document, similar to what you would do in another cloud platform, just this time it's self-hosted. So it's going to convert this .docx file to a Synology document file, and you're going to then be able to interact with that document like you normally would on any other cloud platform, just this one you own. So as we open this up, you're going to see that we have this document with a sentence right at the top, and we can begin making changes. When we finish those changes, you're going to see right at the top, all changes are automatically saved as you make them. So that's why versioning is good, so you can roll back if you need to in the future. If you make changes and they're saved, you can always roll those back if you wanted to. But first, let's check out the sharing options right here. So under this main sharing page, it's mainly for sharing internally. So you can have a share link and set privacy settings for your internal users, allowing them to view it, comment on this document, or even edit it. and you can select invitees that you can actually invite to the specific document and give them specific role permissions for this document. Again, this is getting a little bit more granular than a home user might use. All those features for permissions is usually for a business use, but this public link is great for everyone. You can create a public link to share this document externally, and you can change some of the different settings here, like not allowing anyone to download or copy the file. But the main thing is right at the bottom, utilizing the public link. If you click on that link and share it out to someone, they can use the Quick Connect service to log directly into this document, even if they don't have a Synology account on your NAS. What you're seeing on the top right now is another user on the NAS logging into the same document. They are an internal user to this NAS. This is Todd. He's logging onto this document to work on it with me right now. So what you're going to see right here is Todd is going to enter down to a lower level here and type in a sentence right here to the Synology Spot audience. So as you can see, Todd finished typing out his sentence right there, and all those changes were inevitably saved back to the Synology Drive server, of course. So what we can do now if we wanted to revert this document back to a previous point in time is we can check out our version history. So whenever we see our version history, we can tell we have one from earlier, and we can select that version and either restore it right over the top of this document or make a copy of it so you have both copies available. So if we restore this document right over the top of the one that we were just editing, then it's going to revert it back to a previous point in time. As we back out of that menu and refresh the page, you're going to see that all those edits that we made just now are now gone because we reverted this document back to a previous version. So now, lastly, what you can do is actually download this document and convert it back out of a Synology document file back into a regular Microsoft Office file so that you can begin editing it outside of the cloud platform. So just because you converted it to a Synology Office document doesn't mean that you can't convert it back into a regular Microsoft Office document. So that's just really the flexibility of the Synology Drive web portal and really shows you the power of this private cloud you've now just created. So now let's introduce everybody to the syncing environment for Synology Drive. Now, Synology Drive is your private cloud platform. You can utilize the web portal, but something else you can do is create sync tasks to your local PC from anywhere. So what we're going to do is pair our agent, our Synology Drive client, back to our NAS utilizing our Quick Connect address. So we're going to type in Minerva-spot and our credentials and leave Enable SSL Data Transmission Encryption checked so that we have the most secure connection possible. As we hit next, it's going to be testing the connection, making sure all your credentials are correct, and then you're going to be able to start setting up the sync task settings. Now, you're going to notice you have an option to do sync or backup at the very beginning of this wizard. Keep in mind we're going to start off with a sync task in our case, and you can add in your backup task later and have both those tasks running in conjunction. Now, what we're going to do is choose where we want to sync from on the Synology NAS. So in my case, I want to sync my drive folder, which is, again, my space in the Synology Drive environment. Now, the folder location on your computer is going to be a little bit different. So as we hit change here, you're going to see that you have a couple different options. You can either do it based on the standard folder pathway, or you can have it create an empty Synology Drive folder in whatever folder you select. For me, I usually like to disable that because if we take a look at this folder pathway, it's going to select whatever folder you want, create the Synology Drive folder, and then place all of your synced data into that. For me, I'd rather just dump it into whatever folder I select. In this case, it's going to be some subfolder in my documents folder. Let's say it's my Spot My Drive folder that I've already created, for example. So we're going to disable that, create an empty Synology Drive folder, and you can see it's going to just sync directly to that folder I selected instead of creating that blank Synology Drive folder. So we're going to hit done here, and it's going to begin syncing all of your data to your computer and vice versa since we did a bidirectional sync in our case. Now, as we exit out here, you're going to be able to click the file pathway to immediately launch your File Explorer to see exactly where those folders and files are being synced to. So it's going to open that Documents Spot My Drive folder. You can see that the Drive client also just said that it was finished syncing a couple different things. And as we refresh this page, you can see that document folder that we uploaded to my Drive location. It's already been synced back down to my local computer. Now what you can see is that we have a document here, and it actually has a status next to it that says available when online. Now this is on-demand sync inside of Windows. So what you'll notice here as we drill down into the properties of this device, or this document rather, is that its size on disk is actually 0 bytes. That's because it's just viewable inside of the sync task, and when we double click it, it's actually going to stream it down on demand from your NAS. So Windows has support for that on-demand sync, so you can definitely make use of that in the Synology Drive environment. Once you do pull that through the on-demand sync, it'll then be taking up space on your local device, in this case just a few K. But as you notice, whenever you initially start the sync with on-demand sync on, it'll just give you a list of all your documents, and they'll be living mainly on the Synology NAS until you do decide to pull them. After checking out on-demand sync, let's go ahead and take a look at creating another sync task, but this time for a team folder rather than My Drive. As we work through this wizard, you can see that we're going to be able to actually select a specific folder that we want to sync with underneath that team folder. So we're going to select a folder, in our case, the Household Documents folder. And we're going to go ahead and again choose where we want this folder to live on our local device whenever we create this sync task. So we're going to hit change once more. We're going to disable that empty Synology Drive folder checkbox and choose a documents folder that we want to sync to in our case. So as we scroll down, we're going to see that we have another Spot Household Documents team folder that I've already created just to make everything that much smoother for my understanding of the sync environment. And you can see we now have another sync location already populated in our Drive client. And again, as we click that address there, it's going to immediately open that folder, and we can see all those folders and documents that we had previously in the Drive web portal. They're now available for syncing on demand down from our main NAS device to our Windows device. Now that we've done all that, you can see how you can actually interact with your team folder. We're going to take some photos, for example, and drop them right into our main Spot team folder sync right here. So you can see we took a few different folders and they were synced right back to our Synology Drive environment. And if we open up our Synology Drive web portal, that's also reflected inside of the Synology Drive web portal. So what this means is that you can interact with data in your private cloud environment either through the client, through normal local protocols like map drives, or through the web portal, and they can all see the same data in the team folders, etc. So we've already set up our sync task, so now let's walk through setting up a backup task in this scenario. We're going to go ahead and create a backup task under the Backup Task tab here, and we're going to connect back to that same Synology NAS in our scenario. Now on this next page, you're going to be able to select all the different folders that you want in this backup task. So we're going to select any and all important folders we want taken care of for this operation. So for me, I'm going to drill down into my documents and pull out my work documents folder and have that backed up. By default, it backs up to your home folder, your drive location, and it labels it based on your computer's name. You can also restrict what files are actually backed up in this backup task if you wanted to, but for most people, you can just leave it at default. When we hit next, we can select what backup mode we want, either manual backup, scheduled backup, or even continuous. We're going to leave it on continuous since we set this all up with Quick Connect, so we can back it up continuously from anywhere now. So now we're going to let this backup run for just a few minutes here and be back in just a moment to show you that restore process. So now that that backup is finished, we can go ahead and hit our restore button to perform a restore procedure if you want, and you're immediately greeted with the same folder structure that that backup task pulled from for this version. So we can drill down into our documents folder, our work documents, and into our deliverables folder and begin restoring data as we want. By hitting the restore button, it's actually going to restore this Excel file, for example, right back in place, right back where it was found whenever this backup task was actually done. You can also download this specific file and place it somewhere else on your computer if you so desire. And that's what's really great about Quick Connect. You can both back up your data from anywhere utilizing the Quick Connect service without needing to worry about all these port forwarding settings, and you can also restore through that same easy-to-use service. So let's go ahead and recap this section. As you may remember, the first component we talked about was the Synology Drive Admin Console. And this is where you do a lot of your initial configuration for your environment, setting up your team folders, file versioning, and other sharing settings on top of that. The next component is the Synology Drive web portal and Synology Office. And this web portal is going to be pretty familiar to you if you've used other cloud platforms in the past. It's what allows you to edit and collaborate on documents on the fly directly through a web page. Lastly, you have the Synology Drive Agent, which allows you to sync with all of your various endpoints, and it even provides file-level backups for things like your Windows, Linux, or Mac OS device. So in this next section, we're going to be taking a look at all the different multimedia options that are available to a home user with Synology NAS. Keep in mind, we're going to be going over a few different applications, but you don't need to use all of them. You can use any combination of them to meet your needs. To start off in our agenda today, we're going to be first looking at Synology Photos. Now, Synology Photos is a new application in DSM-7 that takes all of your favorite features from Synology Moments and PhotoStation and merges them into one easy-to-use application. We also have Video Station, which is your go-to solution for managing all of your movies and TV shows that you might be storing on your Synology NAS. We then have Audio Station, which performs a similar function to Video Station just with your music. It allows you to create easy-to-use playlists, allows you to stream internet radio, and even stream your music that might be on the Synology NAS to other devices on the network. So with Synology Photos, one of the great features that was carried over from previous applications is its ability to use facial recognition for your photos using AI algorithms. That means that Synology Photos can recognize whenever you upload a photo of a person. You can then tag that person with their name inside of the database so that anytime you upload additional photos of that person, they will be recognized and grouped accordingly. You can also view and manage photos from one location and even share photos or entire photo albums in a secure way, which is great for enthusiast and professional photographers alike. You can also create automatic albums grouping your photos based on geolocation, tags, file type, or even those facial recognition results. Lastly, there's a new accompanying app for Synology Photos for your Android or iOS device that allows you to back up your shots from your mobile device directly to the NAS for safekeeping. So let's go ahead and check out Synology Photos and its accompanying app on top of that, making sure that you can also back up your photos from your mobile device directly to your NAS. So let's go ahead and begin our demo for Synology Photos, looking at the entire application and how to use the mobile application on top of that. So we're going to go ahead and open up our Synology Photos application on our Synology NAS. What you're going to see first and foremost whenever you launch this application is your welcome screen, since you haven't opened this application quite yet. As you click through this, there's going to be an option to actually enable the People album inside of your personal space, and that is actually where all of the facial recognition results actually go. So we're going to go ahead and enable that in our case and click through the rest of the menu. You're going to see a couple other warnings pop up for how to change your display type, but for us, before we add some photos, we want to change some settings in our profile. So we're going to open up the settings menu. On the main personal page, you're going to be able to change things like the date format for your timeline view if you wanted to do that. And you can also enable your People album in the personal space if you didn't click on that during the welcome screen. But the big one for us in this case is actually going to be enabling the shared space for our environment, because we're going to have multiple people utilizing Synology Photos, so we want a place where we can all view everybody's shared photos, of course. So we're going to enable that shared space, and you can see even the shared space also has support for enabling the People album there, which is also where the facial recognition results would go. So we're going to enable that there too in our case. Lastly, under Global, there's some other settings that you can set up here to do file exclusions if you need to, but for most people, for most home users, you're not going to need to change many of that. Now that we set up shared spaces, you're going to get an alert that you can actually change your view from your personal to your shared space as you need in the future. So now we're going to start uploading some photos to our Synology Photos environment. You can see we're uploading around 30 items right now, and it's going to do that task accordingly. So now we're going to come back in here as it finishes up those final few photos. So it's just going to finish up this upload task. And once we finish uploading these photos, you're actually going to start seeing them in our personal space. Now you can see all the different photos that we just uploaded in that first tranche of photos. You can clear your background tasks up here. And now we can begin to explore what we did upload. What's really cool is you can change your view for your photo from either like the file view or the timeline view. And my favorite is the timeline view because you can see when you took those photos as you scroll up and down. And as we add more photos in just a bit, you're going to see the timeline view kind of evolve as you have more dates in there. As we go to the personal space and shared space, since we uploaded some photos to the personal space, you can see it is now detecting some of the people that were in that first tranche of data. So now that we've allowed it to analyze some of those photos, you can see as we go into our personal space, you can see that we have two people now being recognized in those photos. So I'm going to name them Stephen and Barbara in this case. And you can see that we have two photos underneath both of those people albums. So as we click through that, you're going to see for Barbara, for example, that she has a couple different photos from whenever they attended a party, for example, with some friends for a dinner party. Likewise, if we go over back to Stephen, you're going to see that he has some photos for when he went camping with some friends on top of that. So this is going to be a great easy way to organize your photos and group them via people, utilizing the facial recognition software inside of Synology Photos. So now that we've gotten some people in the People album, what we're next going to do is actually go ahead and open up our main Photos page. and show you the shared space on top of that. So just like the personal space, you can also go into the shared space and begin uploading photos. So we're going to upload another tranche of photos to the shared space, this main shared photo album here. Now, as we finish up this photo upload, now we're going to see a bunch of photos in our shared space in this kind of group main album that you see right here. So we're going to clear our tasks, and now we have a bunch of different photos from different dates in time. So we have, again, that option to either do a folder view, which is more of just like the basic folder structure view, or the timeline view. So now that we've added photos from many years in the past, we can scroll back and forth in the timeline view to see them accordingly from photos back from 2019 or 2020 in this example. Now if we go to albums, you can see that since we uploaded some of our own photos with geolocation data tagged in the metadata, we now have places inside of our Synology Photos environment. You can see for Issaquah, for example, we have a couple photos when I went on a walk there recently. So you can see we're finishing our upload for that trip to Tokyo. You can see there's a couple photos of some architecture as well as some coffee and tea that we had on the trip. Now we're going to want to organize all of these different photos into an easy to use album, but before we do so, I wanted to show everybody how that you can actually filter your different photos based on not just your geolocation, date taken, and the people, but also by what camera settings that you had. It could be like the camera type, the lens, the focal length, exposure time, aperture, even the ISO settings that you had whenever you actually took that photo. Now this is an extremely powerful tool, especially for professional photographers. Let's say you had a specific camera and you had some specific settings and you wanted all of the photos in your entire library that had that camera and those settings. You could do that here. You could select what camera you utilized or multiple cameras, and even select other settings, like I said, with the aperture, ISO, exposure time, etc. So as you can see, it's a very powerful tool to be able to find your photos based on what camera settings you had, and that's all done by utilizing the metadata that is paired to those specific photos. So what we're going to do next is begin to organize these photos in an intelligent way. So first and foremost, let's show you how to tag photos before we add them to an album. So all you need to do is begin selecting the photos with the checkbox, and once you do so, of course, you're going to get your initial alert to actually add these photos to an album. You get a nice little toolbar that pops up on the bottom right that you can use to download or add them to an album or tag them like we're about to do. So we're going to hit the three dots on the bottom right and hit Edit Tags to add tags to these photos. So we're going to add these photos to a greater travel album in our case here. So we're going to name this Tokyo trip with the tag here, and we're going to create a greater travel album for all these photos for every time we go and travel the world. So what we're going to do is select all the photos once more and add them to an album, and we're going to create a new one. Now we're going to go ahead and name this travel photos for our photo album, and this is going to be a shared space album in our case. So now that we're in shared space and we created that album, what we can do is go ahead and go over to the albums tab here, and you can see we now have a travel photography tab right there. And now we can see all the different photos that we took and added to this travel photography album here. So now what you can do with these travel photography albums is you can actually enable sharing for this entire album and not just the photo. So for us, we're going to use this share link right here for the Minerva-Spot Quick Connect address like we did before. And to make this album more secure, we're going to require a password since we are sharing this externally in this case. So we're going to type in our password right now. And we're going to keep this public, but you can change some of the settings if you wanted to for the privacy settings if you want. We're going to leave everything default on this share. We're going to hit OK here and show you what it looks like whenever you do indeed share this link and what it would look like for the user who has that link. So we're going to hop over to a new window here. Now we're opening up this protected album right now, so we're going to type in that password we set for sharing this album. And this is exactly what your end user would see whenever they actually go to see that album that you share with them. They also have options to view the album as a slideshow so they could see all the different photos in chronological order in this case. And that's how easy it is to share out your photo albums utilizing Synology Photos. And this is, again, great for professional photographers who might have multiple portfolios that they want to share with differing clients. You can definitely use this functionality to share out your body of work whenever you're looking to get a new project signed on. So now let's go ahead and go through creating full conditional albums in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to first tag a bunch of these photos from both our camping trips and our trip to Tokyo as photos that contain some sort of coffee or tea in our case. So we're going to go ahead and create a tag for coffee and apply that there. And we're also going to add a tag for tea on top of that. So now all these photos are tagged with coffee, tea, pretty much anything with a mug. So now we have 4 photos tagged with that specifically. So now what we can do is actually create a conditional album that will reference that tag specifically. So if we hit the plus icon under the albums, we can create a conditional album, and we're going to put it into a shared space. And we're going to name this album just coffee and tea. And once we do so, we can select what file type we want put in the album. But for us, we're going to set the conditions to be tags for this scenario. So we're going to do the tags for coffee so that any photo that we have currently in our collection with the tag coffee will be placed into this album. What's also great about this is anytime you upload an additional photo and then tag it with these tags, it will be automatically placed into this coffee and tea album. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We're going to hop right back over to our main environment right here, to where we can actually upload some photos. So we're going to go back to our shared space photos page here and upload a photo of a cup of coffee once more. Now we're going to tag this cup of coffee with the coffee tag in our case. Hit OK. And now that we've done that, it'll update that item immediately so that we can now see it in our coffee and tea album, just like we saw the other 4 photos. So that's the power of conditional albums. You can do it via the tags that you set up for your specific photos, or you can do it by the people that are recognized utilizing facial recognition. What's also great about the conditions that you set, you can have multiple conditions and set up logic for those conditions. So if you wanted all the photos that have a certain person and they also have a tag of coffee, you can definitely do so and have a full album of that person always drinking coffee, for example. So now let's talk about the accompanying app for Synology Photos, which is the Synology Photos app that you'll see on iOS and Android devices. Now, whenever you log in with your credentials here, again using our Minerva-Spot Quick Connect address and the proper credentials, you'll be greeted with all of those photos we are interacting with, both your personal space and the shared spaces that you have permissions to. You can see your photos, all of your albums, including the people, places albums, and you can see all of your sharing settings inside of that application. Now, what's really cool about the Synology Photos application is that you can actually select the photos and pretty much interact with them the exact same way you would whenever you were using the Synology Photos application directly on the NAS. You can highlight a photo or multiple photos and easily share them out through your phone, or you can place them into an album or even add tags to them or move them around, download them, whatever you need to do, you can all do it through the Synology Photos app. Another big thing, and why you might want to use this app, is that if you're an on-the-go photographer and you're meeting with a client and they wanted to see a couple different photo examples, you could immediately access your entire collections of photos with the Synology Photos app and share those out directly at an individual photo level or at the album level so that they can immediately view those photos so you can close that deal for that photography job. So it's a great tool for anyone who wants to easily share their photos from anywhere, and it's great for photography professionals who might need to have quick access to their entire portfolio on the fly. Now, one of the last things that you'll want to check out inside of the Synology Photos app is the Synology Photos backup. So you can actually set up a backup task on the Synology Photos app from your mobile device directly to the NAS, so the NAS can take care of those photos. And in a couple minutes, we're going to talk about some backup options to back up all that photo and application data off of the NAS to a safe and secure cloud location. Now, keep in mind, after you do these backup tasks, there's also options to clear your backed up data off of your phone, and that's really helpful if you have limited space on your device. It can clean up all of those photos that are already backed up and taken care of on the system. So definitely check out the Synology Photos accompanying app if you're going to be using all of the other powerful features that are in the Synology Photos application at large. The next application we're going to take a look at in our multimedia suite is, of course, VideoStation. Now, VideoStation is your go-to solution for managing all of your movies and TV shows you might be storing on the Synology NAS. It allows you to create custom libraries for your video data, meaning you could group movies of the same type into one custom library and watch them at a later date as you see fit. You can also view videos directly on the NAS utilizing VideoStation's embedded video player, or you could take that content and stream it to another multimedia device on your network for playback, like a smart TV, for example. You can also search for and apply video metadata to your collection by integrating VideoStation with other online databases. What this is going to do is help pull, your cover art for the movie and the description, thus making your collection that much more complete. So let's go ahead and check out VideoStation and its accompanying app, DS Video, and how it can work for you. So you can see we're on our main NAS again, and we're going to first open up VideoStation for this demo. Whenever we open up VideoStation, it's going to launch a new window that is basically your command center for your video collection now. On the first feature updates pop-up that you'll see, there'll be an ability to go to settings immediately to enable the video info plugin for the movie database. This is great so that you can actually search for and apply metadata to your movie collection. Now, if you don't already have an account with the movie database, it's free to create, so go ahead and do so, and you can grab your API key to hook it into VideoStation. So now that we've done so, we're going to have the ability to apply metadata to our movies and TV shows. But to do that, we're going to need to first add some videos. So we're going to go ahead and add some videos here. And we have some videos already placed in the video folder. And these are going to be mainly our home videos in this case. As you can see, our video folder is now indexing. And depending on how much video you actually have in that folder, that can take a little bit of time. So we're going to let that run out now. So now that we've let that run, you can see that we have our home video folder. And we have multiple home videos for some skiing trips and that kind of thing. And we can immediately play those videos inside of the embedded video player on VideoStation. So as you can see, we can see the skiing video happen right here and immediately view videos directly through our web browser. Now the next thing we're going to do is actually add in some other movies that might be a little bit different besides our home videos. So we're going to add a movie folder in our environment. So for us, we have another video folder called Public Domain Movies. These are free movies everybody can grab. So we're going to grab our early movies folder here and then add them into our movie library right now. So as you can see, once again, it's indexing. So we're going to let that run through right now. So now this is all finished indexing, and there's just a couple old movies in there. But as you can see, Blue Steel with John Wayne was automatically grabbed utilizing the TV database. That's why we set up that thing at the very beginning so that we could grab that metadata. And just like our home videos, we can immediately play this video directly in the embedded video player for VideoStation. Now, one thing to make note of is if you needed to add your specific metadata or search for it manually, you can definitely do so. And also, directly on this movie's page right here, you can click a button to actually stream this video directly to other smart devices in your network. Like for me, I have a couple other Roku devices on my network. So now that we've streamed that movie to another device on the network, let's take a look at public sharing. If you click the share button below the cover art for the movie, you can grab your Quick Connect address for just viewing that individual movie, and you can share that now externally to other users. So once you give them that Quick Connect address and they put it into their address bar, they're going to have immediate access to the built-in media player for VideoStation, and they'll be able to play this from anywhere. So as you can see, we can hit play here through this Quick Connect address on this web page and view this movie. So that's the power of VideoStation and really Quick Connect and its integration with all of these different modules. You can easily share your media with anyone, anywhere, anytime. So now that we've shared out that specific movie, there's a couple other icons that you have right below the cover art for the movie. You could add it to a watch list, which is just a general list of movies you want to see later, or you can add it to a new playlist. So you could add this older public domain movie to a playlist you name old movies, for example. So let's say on Sunday you wanted to watch a bunch of old movies, you could just open up this playlist and begin watching all these movies in order. So it's a nice, easy way to organize your movies and make them more digestible depending on your current mood. So now that we've created a playlist for this old movie playlist, something else we can do with this now is actually share the entire playlist and not just the individual movie. Now when we do that, the actual window for Quick Connect is going to look pretty similar for your end user, but there's going to be an additional button along the play bar that allows you to view every movie in the list, and you can go ahead and select those as you wish. So let's get started on the accompanying app for VideoStation, and that is DS Video. It functions on both iOS and Android. And so what we're going to do in the login screen here is type in our Minerva Spot address, our Quick Connect address, and the same credentials we've been using before. So we're going to go ahead and type in a couple different things here and hit sign in. So now that we're all logged in, you can see all the different playlists that we created from before. We can see the shared videos, that old movie playlist that we created, and even that watch list that we added that Blue Steel movie to. Right from this main device right here, from our mobile app, we can even go in and actually select the play button right here and actually play the video directly on our mobile device through this DS Video app, just like you saw with the embedded player on Video Station on the main NAS itself. So now you can see that we can watch that movie, skip ahead, all that good stuff. And we're going to go ahead and back out and show you some other things that you can do inside of the DS Video application. Now that you've seen that you can play the video right on the DS Video app, let's show you what else you can do. You can also download the video locally, so you can always view it from anywhere regardless of your internet connection status. Of course, DS Video will need permissions to your local storage to actually download that video. So we're going to go ahead and grant those permissions and download that video locally so we can watch it no matter what. So now that we've actually downloaded that video locally, let's also check out what else you can do inside of the DS Video app. Now, another thing that you can do is actually select one of your videos, for example, like this John Wayne video once again, and you can actually cast that video to another smart device inside of your network. You can select what player you want to utilize, either my smart TV or even a smart soundbar in this case, and we can select one of those. Once you do so, it'll open up the player menu for that specific movie, and your movie will begin casting to your smart device at that point in time. So it's definitely a great handy tool to utilize DS Video in conjunction with Video Station, especially if you're going to be on the go, maybe flying somewhere. You might want to download the movies locally to your local device so that you can watch them regardless of your status on the internet. The last application we're going to talk about today in our multimedia suite is Audio Station. And Audio Station does for your music collection what Video Station does for your movie and TV collection. It allows you to organize everything into one location. You can create playlists for easy targeted listening for your music collection. You can of course browse your entire collection and search for specific songs, artists, genres, etc. You can also easily share your audio with external users like you saw with Video Station, and you can stream audio to other media servers on your network. What I find very interesting about Audio Station is its accompanying app DS Audio can also integrate with other apps that might be on your phone, like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, so you can stream your music directly to those applications through that DS Audio app. So now that we're in our main NAS device, we're going to head back over to the Audio Station module in this case. And first we're going to take a look at some of the settings we have available to the system. So now we're going to set our privileges for Audio Station. My user already has the privileges we need, so we don't need to change anything there. You can enable your lyrics plugin or even import your iTunes song ratings from that collection if you wanted to. And you can even enable a personal library. Now this is very similar to the My Drive module. It gives you your own personal space inside of the Audio Station platform. Now under Advanced, you can either enable or disable music download with the checkbox, and even enable the Amazon Alexa service if you do have that product. Make sure you check out our online guide for utilizing the Amazon Alexa service if you wanted to get that set up for your system. Now there's a couple other things that are in this menu for DLNA settings, but for most home users you're not going to need to change many of those. So now that we've gotten all of our settings enabled, let's go ahead and check out what we have already set up. So if we go to All Music here, you're going to see that we already have several songs listed inside of our main library here. And we have an artist listed for several of those songs for Johann Sebastian Bach in this case. So what we're going to do is actually show you where all this music lives inside of File Station first, and then start interacting with some of the features. Now whenever you install Audio Station, this music folder, this music shared folder, is automatically created, and this is where we uploaded all of our music to. So that's how we got music into our environment for Audio Station. So now let's go ahead and jump back over to that module and start interacting with some of those features. Now that we're back inside of Audio Station, what we're going to do next is go ahead and go down and click the playlist button right here and add a conditional or smart playlist. What this allows you to do is to create a playlist based on pretty much any rule you want to set. In our case, what we're going to do is we're going to first label the smart playlist and actually do a rule for an artist matching Johann Sebastian Bach's artist name inside of our environment. So what we're going to do is go ahead and name this smart playlist just Bach. And we're going to type in a rule for the artist for j.s.bach in this case, so that any song that has that artist across our entire collection is going to be placed into this playlist. So if we go into the All Playlist button and click on Bach, we're going to be able to see all the songs that we have in our environment that match that rule that we set. So we can go ahead and play any one of these songs, and it'll begin playing on the play bar across the bottom like you would expect with any other music platform. Likewise, with any other music platform, the play bar along the bottom is going to allow you to change a couple different things, like which device you're playing the music on. You can change your volume, even set up your lyrics and allow those to be triggered or turned off on top of that. So now that we've interacted with the play bar along the bottom of AudioStation, which is very similar to other platforms you might be familiar with, let's take a look at some of the other features you can utilize in the system. You can right-click pretty much any song and playlist and share it with the public. It's going to immediately integrate with Quick Connect and generate a Quick Connect link that your users can utilize to access that song or playlist from anywhere. If you ever needed to go and see which songs you've actually shared out and manage those sharing links, you can do so under the Playlist tab here on the left. If we scroll down a little bit, you can see there's our Shared Songs tab, or module here, and we can go ahead and see all the different shared songs that we've shared with externally. You can stop sharing if you wanted to, but for us, let's go ahead and check out what this actually looks like for the user you might share this link with. So we're going to go to Link here. It's going to open up the Quick Connect service and show you your song for AudioStation. And you can see your end user now gets a pretty similar audio playback window that you saw inside of AudioStation on DSM. This is exactly what your users would see whenever you share it externally to your friends or other family members, and they could listen to and play music directly from this web browser. So let's go ahead and check out one of the other advanced features inside of AudioStation, and that's Internet Radio. The most powerful tool here is the user-defined radio. You can use this to find pretty much any of your favorite radio station's streaming address and input it into the URL section right here. So I can take a radio station that's local like KSW The Rock and click and play this music and stream it directly through AudioStation utilizing that stream URL. On the bottom here in just a second, once the stream is established, you'll see a playback counter going on for KSW, allowing you to listen to this station directly through AudioStation and the DS Audio app on top of that. So let's go ahead and sign into the accompanying app for AudioStation, and that is, of course, DS Audio. Now we're going to type in our Quick Connect address for our NAS. That is, of course, Minerva-Spot, as we've discussed previously. And we're going to type in our credentials to log in to that NAS. So once we finish typing in our credentials and log in, we're going to be able to see that music collection that we created previously whenever we were actually interacting with AudioStation directly. Now once in this application DS Audio, you're going to be able to do a couple different things. So we can go in and go to our playlist section, for example, and see the playlist that we created for Bach. And we can see all the songs that were added to that. Since we have an internet connection back to the NAS, we can then play those songs as we wish directly just by clicking the song, and then we'll get a play bar along the bottom. And another couple things you can do with the AudioStation accompanying app, that is DS Audio, is you can also download your playlists and song directly to your local device. Of course, you'll also need permissions to actually download those specific songs and playlists onto your local device. So you'll need to give DS Audio permissions to that and select the folder you want it to download to. But once you do that, you'll have access to your music from anywhere, regardless of your connection status. Again, that's great if you're going to be traveling, if you're going to be flying, or if you're going to be driving through an area that doesn't have reception, so you can't utilize Quick Connect. You could still have some music and playlists downloaded to the local device and listen to them accordingly. So now that we've actually played some music on the mobile app and downloaded it locally, let's take a look at some of the other things you can do. You can also manage your downloaded songs directly from the Downloaded Songs tab. That's great if you wanted to just view which ones were downloaded in a quick and easy way. You can organize it by albums, artists, composers, genres, or just all songs on top of that. Now, another thing you can do if you still have connection to the internet is, of course, you can use your internet radio through the DS Audio app. So if we open that up, you can see if we select user-defined radio and refresh really quick, you can see that KISW station that we created previously, and of course, hit play. This is now streaming this internet radio through the NAS, through the DS Audio app, directly to your local mobile device. Now, last but certainly not least is the integration of DS Audio with Apple CarPlay as well as Android Auto. So you see me right now going through the general Android Auto setup here, and what we're going to do next is we can actually select what source we want Android Auto to play from. And when we do so, DS Audio is a selection option right there. So we can pull the internet radio, our music that we have available through us through that internet connection, or our downloaded music directly through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, so that even while driving, you can listen to your music in a safe and easy way. So let's recap this section. We first started off with Synology Photos, which was new in DSM-7, and it merged multiple features from previous applications into one easy-to-use solution. You still get to use things like AI facial recognition for your photos, and you're still able to share photos or entire albums externally in a secure way, making it a great solution for either home users or professional photographers alike. We then went over Video Station, which is your go-to solution for managing all of your movies and TV shows on your Synology NAS. You can easily stream those videos or TV shows to other multimedia devices on your network for playback, and you can also integrate it with other online databases to pull metadata for your videos, making your collection that much more complete. Lastly, we went over Audio Station, which does a similar function for your music that Video Station does for your movies and your TV shows. You're able to easily manage and organize all of your music in one location, stream it to other devices, and even integrate DS Audio with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on top of that. In this next section, we're going to look at backup and resiliency on your NAS. Now that we have a bunch of data on this NAS, we need to make sure that we have a backup plan so that if anything were to happen to that device, we can still get our data back. Now on this agenda, we're going to first look at Hyper Backup, and that's going to be your main tool for backing up data off of the NAS itself. We're then going to look at snapshot replication, and that's a great tool if you're maybe not using Synology Drive and you're just using the NAS as a local file server. It's a great way to add some additional versioning to your local file serving. Lastly, we have Synology C2, which is going to serve as a destination for Hyper Backup in this case, and we're going to talk about why you might want to use Synology C2 as your Hyper Backup destination to take care of your data. So Hyper Backup is the tool you're going to want to use to push data off of the NAS, and this could be anything from your photos, files, documents, or any other data that you've already uploaded there. It also supports application level backups, so you can back up configs, settings, and data managed by that application, which is great because if you ever needed to actually restore that application, you can do so in a quick and painless way rather than having to go through a full configuration process that you would if you were going to do a clean install. Now, Hyper Backup is also compatible with common cloud providers, so if you're thinking of a cloud provider right now, more than likely Hyper Backup can utilize that provider as a backup destination. There's also encrypted backup options available in Hyper Backup, aside from also having encryption in transit as your data is moving from the NAS to your cloud provider. We also have options for client-side encryption, so your data is encrypted before it ever leaves your Synology NAS device. Now, we believe the best solution for your backup destination on your Synology NAS is Synology C2 storage. The reason being is it fully integrates with DSM, so you can easily explore and restore from your backups in C2 directly on the NAS on the Hyper Backup Explorer, and you can also easily download your backup data from anywhere. Since C2 is in the Synology ecosystem, you can log directly into Synology C2 storage and download your data from your backup directly through your web browser. There's also options for encryption and two-factor authentication for your backups in the cloud. So even before you can gain access to your Synology C2 storage data, you have to go through these decryption and two-factor authentication procedures. Now there's some other services alongside Synology C2 storage like HybridShare and some other services that we've also released recently. So feel free to shoot us an inquiry if you have any questions on those. So let's go ahead and check out Hyper Backup and how you can utilize that to back up your data to Synology C2 storage. So here we are back inside of DSM. Let's go ahead and open up Hyper Backup in this instance to begin our backup task. We're going to go to Synology C2 storage, but you can see we have a whole list of other options you can choose from here. As we open up this next part of the wizard, you're going to see a window pop up, and we're going to need to authenticate with our Synology C2 storage account. Now you can see we already are logged into ours, and you can see you can select all of our different data centers. We now have 3, one in Frankfurt, Seattle, and also Taiwan. For latency and other performance reasons, we're going to choose the United States in this case and continue on in the backup task. Now we can go ahead and select all the different folders and data that we actually want to back up in this Hyper Backup task. So we can back up this entire volume if you wanted to with this checkbox. And as you can see, as we drill down into the Homes folder, you'll see I have my personal user folder, all of my Drive documents and files, and also my photos even beneath that, including the backups that we created for Synology Drive. So on the next screen, we're going to be able to choose those application level backups, and so we're going to select all the ones that we interacted with today so far. So that's going to be Audio Station, Hyper Backup, Surveillance Station, and as you can see, whenever you select certain applications, it's also going to back up certain shared folders in the corresponding data. So whenever we select Drive Server, it's going to also grab all the folders that we have selected as team folders. So once we have all of these different applications selected, we can change some other advanced settings for our C2 backup task. We're going to go ahead and rename this just Home Backup. And there's a lot of different checkboxes here, but one of the biggest ones is right at the bottom, and that's the client-side encryption. This is where you enable that and set up your encryption key. And keep in mind that transfer encryption, that encryption while your data is moving to your destination, is always enabled and it's on by default. So on the next screen, you're going to be able to set up your backup rotation. You can keep up to 65,000 versions, so you can select however many you need. So you can do the standard amount if you'd like, and that should be pretty much good for all home users at that point in time. So you can see we're still on our Synology NAS with Hyper Backup open, and we're going to open up the Backup Explorer with this magnifying glass. Being able to explore your Hyper Backup tasks directly on the NAS through this Explorer is a feature that's unique to Synology C2 storage. So as you can see, we can navigate through this entire folder structure as it was whenever we took this backup task for this version. So what we can do here is select this document, for example, and restore it directly in place to where it was when we took this specific version of the backup. We can also download this specific document or folder directly through this Hyper Backup Explorer. So right now it's going to go ahead and fetch this data from Synology C2 storage, and in just a few moments it's going to be available to us in our Downloads folder. Now you can see that document folder is now available in our Downloads bar right at the bottom, and it's now available to access after we did that quick download and restore operation. Now what we're going to do is hop over to Synology C2 Storage's main login page. So you're going to see another page pop open here. And this is going to be the main overview of your entire C2 account. So we verified we're on the correct C2 account, and we're going to navigate to the Synology C2 Storage module. There's a couple other C2 services that are now available to users worldwide, so go ahead and check those out if you're interested. For us, we're going to go ahead and move into Synology C2 Storage, and you're going to get a good overview screen of how much storage space is being currently utilized in your Synology C2 Storage subscription. So you can see a couple of metrics like data composition, which tasks are using the most data. But for us, what we're going to do is we're going to navigate right down to our specific task for the backup task that we did on the previous Synology NAS. Now, once we find that task, we're going to go ahead and open up the Backup Explorer directly inside of Synology C2, and what you're going to see is that it looks almost exactly the same as the Backup Explorer on the Synology NAS, and it's going to have the same folder structure that you saw previously, especially the same folder structure as when this version of the backup was taken. So just like before, we can pull a specific document, folder, or file out from here and download it directly through our web browser. Now, as you can see, our download operation is being performed right now. So this is a great operation. Just in case you don't have access to your original Synology NAS, you can still restore your data through Synology C2 storage from anywhere. So snapshot replication is going to be a great tool for increasing the data resiliency on your Synology NAS, and we're going to be mainly talking about local snapshots in this case. Now, let's think about a scenario where you might not be using Synology Drive, those advanced features, and its built-in versioning, but you're using the NAS as a local file server, and you've mapped some shared folders as mapped drives in Windows File Explorer. You can apply those snapshots to those shared folders to give versioning to the files inside of those folders, so you can easily roll back to a previous point in time. These snapshots have a retention level of up to 1,024 snapshots, and you can even view and restore those snapshots from directly inside of your operating system. So let's check out snapshots in action and how they can provide versioning for your local file server. So here we are on our Synology NAS, and we're going to open right up our Synology Snapshot Replication package. And when we do so, you're going to notice that we don't have very much scheduled. It's going to be very similar to an environment that you might be looking at whenever you set this up originally. So to set up local snapshots, you just need to highlight one of your shared folders, hit Settings, and enable the snapshot schedule. You can then set up your schedule to happen daily on specific days, and then you can set up your frequency for how often the snapshots will occur. On this main menu, you'll see that you can do up to every 1 hour, but you can also drill down a little bit deeper into more options and go to every 30, 15, or even 5 minutes for your operation. For us today, we're going to just choose every 30 minutes and then move into setting up our retention policies. Now, enabling a retention policy is a great idea so that you have multiple versions for your files. You can either leave it default, which will probably be good for most home users, or you can set up custom rules through the advanced retention policy, which is the bottom bullet point right there. For us, we're just going to leave everything the same here and move on. And we're going to go ahead and hit OK here. So once we hit OK, it's going to actually make all those retention settings take effect for our environment. So as you can see, it now says scheduled next to the household documents. So now every 30 minutes from now on, based on your scheduling that you set, it's going to be taking those snapshots and creating the versions for the files that are underneath the household documents folder. So here we are on our Windows device, and you can see we have on one end our web browser with our snapshot replication module open, and on the right we have our Windows File Explorer. So we're going to map the network drive for the household documents folder that we created those snapshots for. So we're going to just map this to drive M in this case. And once we do so, we're going to be able to see all the different folders, files, documents, all that stuff that are beneath that shared folder. Now, this document folder that you see in this lineup right here, you can see that we've actually already taken some snapshots for the shared folder. So as all of these documents and files sit right now, we currently have a version that we can revert back to utilizing our snapshots because of our scheduling procedure. Now, as we open this document, we're going to make an edit and commit a change so that we can then revert back to the previous version for you utilizing our snapshots. So we're going to type in an edit here and go ahead and save this change. And go ahead and exit out. So keep in mind we still have a snapshot version that we can revert back to before we made those changes. But if you ever needed to create a snapshot manually, you can always use this snapshot dropdown and actually hit take a snapshot right here. Once you do so, it'll automatically take a snapshot manually, and you can even label the snapshots on top of that. You can also lock this specific snapshot that you take manually so that you always retain that snapshot regardless of your retention settings. With that said, we're going to hop back over to the Windows side of things and actually see what the snapshots look like on that side. So we're going to look at our document right here. We're going to right-click and go to Browse Previous Versions so that we can see those snapshots directly inside of the Windows operating system. You can see we have our previous version right here, and we can select it to either open it to verify it is indeed correct for this specific version, what we actually want to return back to, or we can just go ahead and click Restore right away to revert this document to a previous point in time. And that's the power of snapshots. It can provide robust versioning to any kind of file server environment utilizing your Synology NAS. So let's recap this section. We first had Hyper Backup, which is going to be your main tool for pushing data off of the NAS to a cloud provider of your choosing. It works with pretty much any major cloud provider that you can think of. It also has support for application level backups and restoration and client-side encryption so that your data is encrypted before it ever leaves the NAS. We believe the best location to send your data to is Synology C2 storage because it directly integrates with Synology DSM. You can restore it from anywhere by logging directly into C2 and downloading through your web browser, and there's high levels of encryption and two-factor authentication directly in the cloud. Lastly, you have snapshot replication, and mainly the local snapshots. You're actually able to provide versioning to your mapped network drives, for example, on a standard file server, so that you can roll back files in that folder to a previous point of time should you need to. So let's talk about surveillance for the home user, and this is kind of a bonus section for everybody here today, just to kind of understand some of the benefits you would get by utilizing Surveillance Station. Now, Surveillance Station is included with the Synology NAS, and alongside that, 2 licenses for IP cameras are also included with your Synology NAS. Some tips for your deployment: it's best to use wired cameras where possible, so you have the most consistent camera feed in live view as well as in your recordings. And you also want to make sure you use the Client and DSCam app for best results, especially when viewing those live streams from the cameras. Also, Surveillance Station is compatible with thousands of cameras, so this, alongside the 2 included licenses, make it a prime candidate for your home security solution. So let's take a quick look at Surveillance Station and go over some of the benefits you would get utilizing this application. Now, to show you some of the different features that you can get with Surveillance Station, we're going to go ahead and open up that module. We're on a little bit of a different NAS than what we've worked on so far today, just to show you an already set up Surveillance Station environment. But as we open this up, we're actually using the web browser for Surveillance Station, but as a home user, make sure you use the Surveillance Station client on your desktop or the accompanying DSCam app. So what's great about Surveillance Station is you can add IP cameras to record back to your Synology NAS using the storage there. So you can see we have multiple cameras retaining differing levels of footage for our physical assets in our lab in this case. And you can do a very similar thing for your physical assets on your property. What's also great is you can do easy live view of all of these different cameras from one easy to view pane of glass. And this is true for the DSCam and the desktop client on top of that. Next, for home users, it's definitely going to be important to have notifications for anytime something happens on the property. So you can have email, SMS, push notifications through the DSCam app, and you can configure all the different rules for your notifications on this next screen. As you can see, there's tons and tons of different notification rules you can set up for your environment. If your cameras support motion detection, for example, you can get a text message alert anytime there's motion, at a specific period of time on your property, for example. So utilizing Surveillance Station is a great solution for your home security system, since the surveillance application itself is included with the NAS, along with 2 camera licenses with most Synology NAS. So let's go ahead and recap this entire session today. We looked at using Synology Drive to set up your private cloud for syncing, sharing, and collaborating on your files from anywhere. This even also allowed you to do file level backups of your Windows devices, your Mac OS devices, and even your Linux devices on top of that through the Synology Drive agent. We also explored multimedia options for the home user, like streaming audio and video to your smart devices and managing your photo libraries for the whole family. After getting all this data onto the Synology NAS, we needed a way to back this up, and we chose Synology's Hyper Backup solution and Synology's C2 storage to take care of our data. Finally, at a high level, we took a look at how you can protect your physical assets utilizing Surveillance Station. But keep in mind, we have some other webinars that we did on Surveillance Station, so if you needed more help on that, be sure to check those out. They go into much greater detail than we could in just a few minutes here. So if you need additional help past that, go ahead and check out the Knowledge Center first. It's a whole library of knowledge containing everything you need on the Synology ecosystem, from the hardware to the software to the individual applications themselves. If you had a more targeted question or needed more guidance, you could try out our inquiry team. And our inquiry team is a whole group of Synology experts that should be able to provide guidance on your specific question. Lastly, if you needed more help past that, or if you just wanted to learn more about Synology, check out the other Spot videos we have posted on our Spot event page. All those videos are available on YouTube, and we have hours and hours of content that can help you become a Synology expert too. With that said, thank you everybody for tuning in today. We will see you next time. Take care.